Hey, what's happening, everybody? We're going to be talking about finishing the hemline of the overgarment. You have followed all of the videos in the playlist of how to sew the overgarment for beginners. We're going to finish off the overgarment. You have arrived at this step. How do we finish this overgarment? We're going to do what's called a blind stitch. A blind stitch is done by one single thread. We have one single thread over here, and at the end of that thread we have made a knot. Here's our knot real quick, as you can see in the video. There we go. I'm going to cut off that knot so I can redo it. So for those that would like to see, take a one-liner thread and make a knot. And once you have formed that little knot, we're going to cut off some of the thread. There we go. And we have fed our thread through our needle. And we're not going to make a knot over here. You just want to leave this piece of thread floating around. And we're going to sew with one-liner thread. The method here is blind hem, and that is a prick stitch. We want to prick stitch these hemlines together. Let's take this as our outer part of our overgarment, and that side is our inner part of our overgarment. Alright, so once you have your thread ready to go, you want to grab only the seam allowance, and that is what you want to prick stitch. So start where you've left off your last stitch. Yeah, that's where we want to start. So open up your seam allowance and start prick stitching, connecting this thread of your needle underneath the last stitch that you've made, making sure that the stitches is not showing on the outside. So always check on the outside or the inside if the threads are showing. And now I'm pulling through my thread until that knot connects, and now I'm ready to prick stitch or do this blind stitch. Let me bring it up closer to the camera so you can see real quick. So once I have made my first stitch, I'm going to grab my seam allowance, just like a fiber, or at least a thread, a sliver of fabric. Pull it through and the thread connects. And we follow this method all the way to the end. And as you go, people, you want to make sure that the threads aren't showing through. And I'm pulling my thread tighter as I go, and double check if the threads aren't showing through, right? Let's continue this. Double check. So here, let me just press my autofocus. There we go. So the needle is showing through. If I would continue with the stitch, my thread would be visible on the outside. So reverse that needle and redo that stitch. We don't want to see the needle or any thread showing like that. There's nothing showing. I'm redoing that stitch, but nothing is showing on the outside. That's what we want. Pull that thread and needle through and continue over to the other side. Take your time with this, people, because sometimes you work too quick and you forget to check if the needle is showing through on the other side. Pull all this thread tight, flattening the seam or the hemline, continuing that stitch all the way to the end. Let's finish this up real quick. And that's what we call a blind stitch or a prick stitch on the hemline, creating a blind stitch. Yeah, blind stitch meaning is invisible to the eye. There we go. we're going to follow the stitch all the way till the end, and my end is quite far, so I'm going to pause the video and speed it up. Maybe I'll just speed it up. Let me continue. I'll just speed up this part. Before we speed it up, remember people, it's good to keep your stitch 2 millimeters from the edge of the fold line of the fabric so that you don't lose your seam allowance. And once you close it up, it closes nice and flat instead of having a big gap between your stitches. It might just show afterwards. So keep your stitch here, this stitch here, 2 millimeters or between 2 and 3 millimeters from the fold line of your fabric. All right. All right, people. So once we get to this point, now all that we got to do is just finish off the stitch. So here I'm right at the end of my stitch. I'm just going to make a little knot. So I'm going to stitch back for the last time, grabbing a sliver of that fabric. Once I have that sliver, I'm going to pull out the thread and I'm going to make a little knot. So I have 3 lines of thread over here, and I'm going to just make a knot. Yeah, 1, 2, and connect that knot. Don't pull it too tight, otherwise you'll create pleats on your hemline. Once you have made a knot, you can cut the thread off. And there we go, people. That is how you create your blind stitch. There's no stitches on the outside. All the stitches are on the inside of that seam. Yeah. So all that we gotta do is just clean it up, iron them nice and flat, and that's what it takes to make your blind stitch on your bottom of your overgarment. All right, let me know what you guys think, and drop me a comment, like, share, subscribe, and we take it from there. Otherwise, catch you in the next video. Thanks.